Right now, on to the point. Another interest rate cut.
What we're doing right now is seeing the Fed finally fall into line.
What it means for your wallet and why you may want to wait to buy that big purchase. And the retail theft crackdown.
For the first time in years, we have been able to hold people truly accountable.
1 year later, a look at the effectiveness of Proposition 36. California will soon ban most law enforcement from wearing face-covering masks. The legal challenges underway. The warning tonight about a possible rise in gas prices as lawmakers push for a change in California's oil production. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alex Bell, and leading our show tonight, the interest rate cuts from the Federal Reserve. Now, the stock market neared its all-time high today after the Fed's cut its main interest rate today by a quarter point. This final decision in 2025 could impact your household's financial future. The final call on interest rates in 2025 by the Federal Reserve caps off a turbulent year for the central bank and current chair Jerome Powell and tees up an uncertain new year ahead.
The Federal Open Market Committee decided to lower our policy interest rate by a quarter percentage point.
Major inflation and jobs reports delayed by the recent government shutdown aren't due out until later this month. But economists say the Fed has enough private data about the U.S. labor market to see it slowing. And cutting interest rates is aimed at encouraging businesses to borrow, spend, and hire more. It can get consumers spending too.
When interest rates come down, that lowers the overnight lending rate that banks use to send money to each other overnight while we're all sleeping. That can lower the broader interest rate that people think about when you think about, the rate you've got on your credit card, the rate you've got on your mortgage.
But loosening the reins on borrowing also risks further heating up prices at a time when inflation remains stubborn. Despite consumers saying they feel the pinch, Americans are spending this holiday season.
People are still spending. It is the holidays. So I think we're seeing credit card debt rise and buy now, pay later behavior is growing. So folks are still spending, but they're putting money in places where their debt is going up.
The Fed facing a growing economy on one hand and a slowing labor market on the other, marking the 2026 outlook for interest rates murky. And to break down these new interest cuts even more, I spoke with an economic expert who says that these cuts were needed. And if you are looking to make a big purchase, you might want to wait until 2026.
This is not a political statement. This is simply pure economics 101. The Fed was behind the curve. They're finally catching up. 3 rate cuts. We got them this year. We need 2 more rate cuts.
The economic outlook for many Americans is dim. According to a poll by Pew Research Center, 74% of adults view the national economy as fair or poor, while 26% describe it as excellent or good. Dr. Sanjay Varshney, a finance professor at Sacramento State University and founder of Golden Stone Wealth Management, says that consumers should be optimistic after today's interest rate cuts.
We need to normalize things. And what we're doing right now is seeing the Fed finally fall into line because they're recognizing that if they didn't get the rate cuts that they gave today, we would see further deterioration in the economy. And there was a higher likelihood that maybe not in the early part of 26, but maybe in the later part of 26, we will go into a recession.
Varshney is also optimistic that in early 2026, the Feds could make 2 more rate cuts.
And that will normalize the Fed funds rate at 3%. And suddenly you'll find that the economy will find stability.
So what should you consider next year if you're planning to make a big financial decision? Varshney says if the Feds do make those 2 cuts, then anyone looking to make a big purchase should probably wait for the new year.
Those rates are likely to come down further. So from a consumer standpoint, it will be cheaper for the consumer if they waited a little bit. On the flip side, if you're an investor, it's going to go against you. If you're in short-term investments or looking to go into short-term investments, they're likely not to pay as much as they were paying a year ago.
Before the announcement was made, top officials at the Fed had disagreed publicly over the cut as inflation has gone up in recent months and hiring has slowed down. It comes as President Trump starts going back on the road, talking about the cost of living. And a new Reuters Ipsos poll shows 56% of Americans disapprove how the president is handling the cost of living. 31% approve. And over the last 5 years, health care, child costs, groceries, rent, and electricity, they've all gone up. But the president last night dismissed concerns about affordability, calling the issue a Democratic hoax and a con job.
They say, oh, he doesn't realize prices are high. Prices are coming down very substantially. But they have a new word. You know, they always have a hoax. The new word is affordability.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer today answering back.
People are struggling. They can't afford basic needs, and Donald Trump keeps making fun of it by calling it all a giant hoax.
In last night's speech in Pennsylvania, President Trump went off script about the U.S. economy, veering off topic for more than an hour about immigrants from certain countries. The president directly attacked Somali immigrants, while today federal agents were seen in this new video pepper spraying demonstrators in Minnesota. The operation is the latest for the Trump administration's federal immigration enforcement, meant to target Somali immigrants unlawfully living in the U.S. Also in last night's speech, President Trump continued to go after Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, who is a naturalized U.S. citizen.
She's always complaining. She comes from a country where, I mean, it's considered about the worst country in the world, right?
Trump went on to say too many immigrants are coming from Africa rather than Europe. Representative Ilhan Omar responded to Trump's attacks in a post on social media saying, quote, Trump's obsession with me is beyond weird. He needs serious help. 1 year after the passage of Proposition 36, Sacramento and Placer County district attorneys are giving us an update on its effectiveness. The measure was passed by voters in all counties and made shoplifting a felony for repeat offenders and increased penalties for some drug charges. ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen is here with the updates.
It's these smash and grab videos over the past few years that inspired Proposition 36. 1 year after voters overwhelmingly passed the measure, Sacramento County District Attorney Tin Ho is calling it a helpful tool.
This last year, we have filed nearly 1,000 felony cases under Proposition 36 in Sacramento County, 750 felony cases and over 240 felony drug cases. And these are just the felony cases that we have filed to go in and try to interdict and to change lives and to protect the community.
Since its passage, Sacramento County has convicted 338 cases for retail theft and 268 cases for drug-related cases. Ho says Prop 36 allows for prosecutors to address chronic criminal behavior while still allowing for treatment.
For the first time in years, we can now impose real felony consequences for repeat offenders. For the first time in years, we have been able to hold people truly accountable.
Placer County DA Morgan Geyer emphasized the importance of sharing resources and working together to make Prop 36 a success.
It means we have to collaborate. We have to share information. We have to map our criminals. We have to talk about them. We have to identify them, and we have to disrupt and dismantle the networks that they operate in.
Geyer says 95% of Placer County's organized retail thieves come from outside Placer County, and they're all experienced criminals.
90% of our organized retail thieves have extensive criminal histories in theft. It means these are not first-time offenders stealing the proverbial loaf of bread to feed their starving family.
Prop 36 has had its critics, most notably Governor Gavin Newsom. In this past year's state budget, the governor set aside $110 million for the measure, which many have argued was not enough money.
The governor, because he does not want to encourage the stick, refuses to fund the carrot. That is a ridiculous premise.
Governor Newsom has repeatedly responded by saying Prop 36 didn't include funding mechanisms and that counties should fund it.
The Sacramento County DA's office says there are still unresolved cases filed under Proposition 36 that are still pending in court. All right, let's get to an update on a story that we brought you in November about a complaint filed against Attorney General Rob Bonta. The California Fair Political Practices Commission, or FPPC, complaint alleges improper use of his 2026 re-election campaign funds. The complaint was filed by Raphael Rothschild, a name not even state political insiders say they know. A spokesperson for the Bonta campaign tells us the complaint is, quote, a silly political stunt completely without merit. We reached out to the FPPC to ask about the status of the complaint. They said that they received the complaint but have not opened a case. Today, they said both parties requested an extension, which was granted. The FPPC's enforcement division will issue its decision on how to proceed by December 19th. Now, the FPPC also sent a statement saying, in part, quote, while the FPPC generally responds to sworn complaints within 14 days of receipt, that timeline may be extended when parties submit additional information after the complaint is filed. This is a routine part of our intake process and helps ensure due process by providing both complainants and respondents a fair opportunity to be heard. This is a story that we will follow. Make sure you stay with us for updates. But still a lot of news to get to. On to the point. A judge tells the Trump administration again to pull California National Guard troops out of Los Angeles, while the court says the deployment is illegal. And a new law sparked by controversial immigration raids. Starting January 1st, California will ban most law enforcement from wearing face-covering masks, but not everyone is on board.
Well, cold and gray once again tomorrow. Not much change in the weather pattern, at least in the near term, but I am starting to track some rain chances next week. Forecast after the break.
But first, another headlines tonight. The House today voted to pass a sweeping defense policy bill. It authorizes $900 billion in military programs. The bill includes a pay raise for troops and an overhaul of how the Department of Defense buys weapons. The White House has signaled strong support for the must-pass legislation and says it is in line with Trump's national security agenda. A federal judge approved unsealing documents from the probe and criminal prosecution against accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. The decision comes a day after a different judge in New York gave the nod to releasing records linked to Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell. No word yet if any of this evidence has already been made available to the public, and the thieves who stole more than $100 million in crown jewels from the Louvre in October escaped with just 30 seconds to spare. A new report also details security failures that allowed the heist to happen in broad daylight. The probe found only one of two cameras covering the break-in point was working, and when the alarm sounded, police were sent to the wrong location. All four suspects were caught, but the jewels are still missing. Now that is beautiful. Take a look at this. Some drone shots from this evening, looking out at the fog line from Shingle Springs at sunset. Thank you so much to our photojournalist, Wes Battalise, for reminding us what the sun actually looks like. Let's get things over to meteorologist Brendan Minchef with a look at our forecast. Brendan, I saw you getting up close to take a look at that drone shot.
Yeah, I wanted to see. I was looking into the little monitor here. I wanted to see what the sun looked like. It's been a while since we've had widespread sunshine across the valley, and well, you know we didn't have that today. Temperatures were once again in the 40s, as expected. 47 in Sacramento, 45 Marysville, 43 up in Oroville, 45 in Stockton. As soon as you get above that gray, though, as soon as you get above that Tule fog, you're looking at a jump of 15 to 20 degrees. It was 64 in Placerville, just up the road from Shingle Springs, 63 in Truckee, and 55 in South Lake Tahoe. So basically, if you weren't in the valley, it was warmer today. 46 right now in Sacramento, 44 in Elk Grove and Stockton, 45 in Manteca, 59 Placerville, 30s in the high country. And as we go into the overnight and start tomorrow morning, we're just going to continue to repeat this pattern that we've had for much of this month. 41 degrees, some patchy fog out there, 41 Stockton, 40 in Modesto, 40 in Vacaville, 41 in Fairfield, 40s and 50s in the foothills. And as you go up in elevation, clear skies means it is going to cool off. We're going to be in those low 20s across much of Tahoe tonight. Now, tomorrow afternoon, things are going to be more of the same, especially in the valley where we're going to be in those 40s, gray, overcast, foggy at times, right? But then, I mean, look at that, 71 in Nevada City tomorrow. Again, when you get that sunshine above the fog, 65 Placerville, 61 in Angels Camp, 57 in Tahoe, and 61 in Truckee. High pressure continues to sit overhead for the rest of this week. It does start to move out, though, through the weekend. A weak passing system by the time we get towards Sunday. That's going to keep on rolling, not expecting much out of that. This next high pressure, though, the models have changed a little bit today. This high pressure next week looks like it may not build all the way in, may sit a little bit further south, and that would allow for moisture to ride up and over that high pressure into Northern California. And that means some rain chances. So we're still several days away. This is for Wednesday, comparing some models here, but both major weather models, the American model and the European model, are showing rain returning to Northern California. Not necessarily a lot of rain, but definitely increasing from what we were looking at yesterday. And we could use that rain because we are an inch behind where we should be for the month of December. Over the next several days, cold and gray continues, but next week, those rain chances looking a little better, Alex.
All right, Brendan, thank you. Right after the break, California lawmakers are sounding the alarm about soaring gas prices, especially with two major refineries set to close. They warn the state may soon be more dependent on foreign oil. And a new California law will ban some officers from wearing masks that hide their identities during operations. Supporters say it's about transparency. Critics, though, are pushing back. Welcome back in. For a second time this year, a federal judge is ordering the Trump administration to end its deployment of California National Guard troops in Los Angeles. The judge ruled the federal government kept the troops in LA illegally after what were called emergency conditions this summer ended. The Trump administration is expected to appeal the decision. Trump initially called up several thousand Guard troops in LA in June. He argued they were needed to protect federal property and personnel during demonstrations over immigration raids. Governor Gavin Newsom sued the administration over the deployment in June and filed a new request for an injunction just last month. The governor responded to today's ruling, saying in part, quote, "The president deployed these brave men and women against their own communities, removing them from essential public safety operations. We look forward to all National Guard service members being returned to state service." Some California lawmakers are warning gas prices could rise if California continues to rely on foreign oil imports. Republican lawmakers, including Congressman Vince Fong and State Assembly member Stan Ellis, both of Bakersfield, say the imminent closure of two major California refineries, Valero in Benicia and Phillips 66 in Los Angeles, is concerning, with reports showing that could reduce the state's refining capacity by nearly 20%. And higher prices could be on the horizon as refineries close, and a key pipeline which transports oil drilled in Southern California to Northern California could also shut down too.
They're anticipating our prices being higher than Southern California, and these prices are going to be anywhere from $8, I'm thinking as high as $10 or $12 a gallon.
At the end of this past legislative session, Governor Newsom and fellow Democrats passed a package of bipartisan energy bills acknowledging the need to lower gas prices. Well, with the new year comes some new laws. One major one being challenged tonight is Senate Bill 627, and it bans some law enforcement from wearing masks while on the job. ABC 10's Janina Nguyen shows us what's changing and why local officers in the state believe that this will hinder their jobs.
He's my husband! He's a U.S. citizen! Why are you doing this?
It's these incidents over the course of 2025 that inspired Democratic State Senator Scott Wiener to introduce Senate Bill 627.
Local and federal law enforcement will be prohibited from wearing these extreme masks that cover their identity.
SB 627, the anti-masking law.
Signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom, the bill becomes law starting January 1st, 2026. Senator Wiener says it aims to address the recent immigration raids that have been happening statewide, prohibiting local and federal law enforcement from wearing masks that cover their faces.
It's just terrifying to see ICE agents and other federal agents running around with these ski masks on. You can't tell who they are. You don't even know if they're law enforcement, and they're just grabbing people and putting them into unmarked cars.
California Highway Patrol officers are exempt, as well as certain undercover operations or medical incidents that require officers to wear masks.
Law enforcement agencies are required to adopt policies to reflect the law. Officers or agents who violate the law can be cited for a misdemeanor.
The Peace Officers Research Association of California, or PORAC, is an open critic of the new law. In September, PORAC sent Governor Newsom a 9-page letter asking him not to sign the bill. Now, PORAC's president Brian Marvel says he's cautioning law enforcement.
If they wear a mask during enforcement activities, that they're going to be personally liable and open them up to potential litigation. So they need to be cautious until their departments can create a policy or procedure regarding the masks.
Marvel questions how effective it will be targeting federal operations.
States cannot govern the actions of federal agents. And this is exactly what California is trying to do.
In November, the Department of Justice sued the state of California, calling this an unconstitutional attempt to regulate federal law enforcement officers, adding that federal officers have been faced with threats. ABC 10 asked the DOJ if it plans on asking a judge for a restraining order to delay the implementation of the mask ban, but a spokesperson did not provide further comment.
We also asked Attorney General Rob Bonta multiple times for an update on the lawsuit's status and did not get a response back yet. We'll be right back after this. All right, before we wrap things up here, we do want to talk about some of the stories that we're going to be working on for tomorrow. If you have been following the California governor's race, you have seen all the names from Villaraigosa to Porter to Steyer to Swalwell. Kind of sounds like a Christmas carol, if you will. But we're going to be talking to the latest candidate to enter the governor's race. The list is just growing. We know there's a lot of information, a lot of questions, so we'll show you the newest face and also tell you who's in the race. The second story that we'll be following is, of course, the continued battle over the Affordable Care Act benefits. We're going to be talking to Senator Alex Padilla, so we'll bring you all that information. But that is our show for tonight. As always, thank you so much for watching and for always inviting us into your home. If you have a story or a question you think we should be looking into, you know you can always email our team at tothepoint@abc10.com. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.